Hello, welcome to today's coffee break webinar with Ulu. Today we are going to hear from Jazmin Idakaar, who is a generalist librarian at the Mattapan branch of the Boston Public Library, on starting a new job, survival of the Cardigan-Clad Fittest. And to save time, I'm just going to hand you over to her. Here she goes.
Hi everyone. How are you doing today? Okay, so thanks for being here at my fabulous webinar. We are going to have a fun and exciting time talking about how you can make it through your first job or a new job at another library. So don't worry, I am here and I will be holding your hand the entire way. Okay, so as Lauren said, I am Jazmin. I'm the generalist librarian at the Mattapan branch of the Boston Public Library. So pretty big urban system, not as big as New York, but we can all dream of being as fancy as Lauren Comito. Today I'm going to talk to you about some things that you might go through as a new librarian or in a new branch. Speaking a little bit from my own experience, but also trying to give you a general idea of, things you might encounter, things you're already encountering, and just how to cope with them. So first of all, congratulations on getting a library job. This is not an easy process for just about anyone these days. So you made it, here you are, and maybe now you're saying, okay, I got the job, it's great. Now what? So toot toot, all aboard the librarianship, guys. All right, so before we get started, a couple of quotes here, a couple kind of irreverent, a couple kind of apropos. Librarianship is definitely not for the faint of heart, so sometimes it's good to have a couple funny quotes to make it a little bit better. All right. So before we really get started, I just wanted to talk to you about how important having a cardigan is. The first thing that you're going to learn about libraries is that they're either too hot or too cold. So a couple pro tips for you. If your library is too hot, you take off your cardigan. And if your library is too cold, aren't you glad you're wearing a cardigan? The first couple of months can be a little bit tricky, and there's a lot of things that you are going to want to keep in mind, a lot of things that you're going to be learning. Navigating the library's culture and social politics.
Jazmin?
Yeah?
Sorry, just one sec. Can you put it on present?
Oh, it says I'm screen sharing.
You're screen sharing, but I can see the inside of PowerPoint.
Oh, and I'm in presentation.
Okay, you might have shared the wrong window.
Oh, darn it. All right, okay. Sorry, everybody.
That's all right.
I thought I was being fancy awesome, and it turns out I was being less fancy and less awesome. Oh. Let's just pretend this never happened.
It's all right. Just go back to screen share and select full screen.
Oh.
And it'll be all good.
Oh.
No, it's fine. You're like the fourth person to do this. Just go right ahead. It's all good.
Okay, now is it sharing?
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
Go you.
Should I start over?
No, just go to the slide you were on. You're all good.
All right, everybody. Forgive the technical snafu. Where were we? I'm so glad the slides are up so you can't see that I am beet red right now. Okay, cardigans, right. There is no library in the world that I have yet been in that cardigan isn't necessary. Whether you're layering or unlayering, libraries are either going to be too hot or too cold, and cardigans are just a librarian's natural way of coping with that. There's a lot that you're going to be needing to learn. So whether it's figuring out the organizational culture or your library branch's culture in particular, written rules versus unwritten rules. If you're working in more than one library or more than one branch, if you're a floating librarian, if you have a couple different library jobs, sometimes these are going to be completely different from each other. So it's a good idea to sort of figure out how to get the lay of the land and, you know, figure out what your job description is and how that fits into the rest of the library. Another big thing that you're going to be learning about is, you know, library presidents, directors, board of trustees. Depending on what your organizational structure is, you might have a president, you might have a manager, you might have a director, you might have all three, depending on the size of your library as well. So it's good to make sure you're putting faces and names together so that when they come to your library, you are ready to show them that best face. There's also a lot of stuff that just isn't going to be in your welcome packet, but is still pretty critical for your day-to-day. So like the fact that you're going to need to know about, I don't know, 1,000 different websites and 1 billion different passwords to make sure that you're getting into your print management system, to make sure you're getting into your catalog, to make sure you're getting into your email, to make sure that you're getting into social media accounts. Make sure you have a handy reference list somewhere, because guaranteed you're not going to remember it all. And some workplaces love to do the password rotation. So if you have a password for 3 months, in month number 4, you wave goodbye and it's a whole new ball game. Finding reliable speakers and performers, that can be tricky, because most people don't walk into a position where right off the bat they have a list of people who are awesome, and when they come and do a program at the library, it's, you know, super fun, exciting, magic and wonderful all at once. So that's something that you'll have to work on. And it can be kind of tricky because, you know, especially if you're getting to know your community, you don't necessarily know the best people out there. Catalog versus what's on the shelf. So, you know, in the best of all possible worlds, the catalog and the shelf would match exactly. But, you know, whether it's things getting shifted around or something being misshelved, or, you know, a book went out and never came back, it's always good to check the catalog versus what's actually on the shelf. Save yourself and your patrons a lot of heartache if you promise them a book and it turns out not to be there. Also figuring out the best routes to get yourself to work, where to get lunch. Finding a lunch spot at your new job can really, I think, help make your day a little bit better. Some days you really just don't want to throw your lunch in a bag. You want to just go out, get yourself a piece of pizza or a salad, and it's good to know where those places are right close to where you work. There's also getting to know your community. So you want to make sure that you know who you're serving, who you're helping, and even if it's a town that you are a longtime resident of, stepping to the other side of that desk can be a big change. People may treat you differently. You might have to interact with people differently than you're used to. Or if you've moved to a brand new place, some cities, some towns are very different. If you're moving from a big city to a small town, chances are getting to know your community is going to be a really important step of doing your job. It's also really important to give yourself a chance to be exciting and try programs and do things that nobody's ever done before, but also to make sure that you are reaching the audience that you already have, continuing popular programs in your community as well. So know your audience, see who's coming in. If you have issues around hunger or homelessness in your community, how can you offer programs that support those populations and make it fun for everybody to engage in. Also, many communities have demographics that the library has a harder time reaching. So if there, for example, might be a halfway house, or there might be an influx of refugees from another country, if the library isn't already serving them, reaching out and figuring out how you can serve those people is a really great way to boost your numbers and get people in the library. And it can really feel like a big achievement when you get people coming in saying, hey, I never knew what was here. I'm so glad that it's here. So now it comes to some of the bumpy parts of your new job. You know, you're already getting to learn a bunch of different things, meeting a ton of new people. So who are those people? How are you going to get along with them? What things might be some stumbling blocks? Some things that you might be dealing with are issues between staff and patrons. Occasionally, you know, there are people who don't necessarily understand the boundary between professional and friendly customer service and something that might be on the level of flirtation. So sometimes for patrons really of and staff of any gender, there can be that type of miscommunication, which can be uncomfortable for the staff member who is on the receiving end of that. Inter-patron drama. So somebody's coming in, they're having a tough day, somebody touches their stuff. That can be a big issue. Unattended children and unattended adults. You know, you have to make sure that you've got those policies in place. You need to make sure that you're keeping an eye on the people who are coming into your library. It's really important to know your policy and, you know, as with any of these issues, to document. Another thing, and I'm just going to leave this here, is surprise bodily fluids. So if you haven't personally experienced them, I guarantee you that the librarians around you have. It's something that every librarian has to deal with. My best advice for you is plug your nose, put on rubber gloves, and dispose of the things that you need to dispose of. Some other things that can help you get through difficult spots are, again, always know your policies. The BPL, Boston Public Library for you people in New York, the BPL up here has over 75 different policies. So it's important to know what your policies are so that you can help enforce the rules and make sure that all patrons are having a good experience in the library, a safe experience in the library. You know, problem solving is important. De-escalation techniques can really help when there's issues between patrons or between you and a patron. You know, and sometimes you really do have to call the police. It's not something that should be done at the drop of a hat, obviously, but you know, it's important for your safety, your staff safety, your patron safety to call police if you absolutely need to, and you know, to make sure that everybody in your library is safe. A couple other things that might be kind of tricky to deal with are being designated as an essential employee, so having to come to work during a disaster or a snow emergency. That can be kind of complicated, but you know, if you budget yourself extra travel time, make sure you've got snow tires, you know, be safe with yourself, but also get to your library. Being open in a disaster or being open in, you know, a snow emergency, for example, can really make a difference to some patrons who may not have a place to go or who may need information on recovering from the disaster. How do you ask for what you need? It can be really challenging to ask for advice or feedback when you're new. You want people to know that you know what you're doing. And sometimes it can feel like asking questions is, you know, sort of exposing yourself to some questions. And it's important for you to, you know, figure out how you can ask for what you need and ways that you can say that to get what you need so that you can do your job to the best of your abilities. Weeding can also be a little tricky. It can be a sticking point between different librarians and different people and different personalities. The extremes would be hoarding and slash and burn. Obviously, book hoarding is when people have a hard time weeding anything at all, and slash and burn is when people get a little overzealous. So it's good to try and find a balance. And if you're asking yourself what a reasonable number of books to bring home is, the correct answer is not all of them. All right, some stuff goes to another level altogether. So there might be, you know, drama between a patron that you have to help sort out and make sure that people are getting what they need. But sometimes things go into the territory of harassment or racism or microaggressions that make you feel like you're not a respected professional. You know, I can't speak to what people deal with when they're dealing with racism, but you know, it's definitely something that is still occurring and is definitely something that we all need to look at as professionals, make sure that our biases and isms are not impacting how we serve our patrons, and also that we're not standing for them if, you know, if we should happen to witness it in our library as well, because libraries should be a safe space for everybody. If you want to know more about what a microaggression is, there is a Tumblr, lismicroaggressions.tumblr.com, and people are sharing different things that they've encountered. So just good to get some perspective there. Couple other things that can be very challenging is making sure that the library is safe, making sure that staff feel safe and patrons feel safe. Some people will have security, some people won't. It really depends on the branch, it depends on the library's funding, depends on the location. Having an engaged, community-focused security guard is definitely something that every library aspires to have. Sometimes we're that lucky, sometimes we aren't. But if you have a great security guard, they can really make a world of difference. Sometimes a natural disaster or man-made disaster may happen at the library. Everything from flood, tornado to marauding turkeys may occur. Sometimes the HVAC system quits or the pipes burst. How do you deal with those things? You know, again, going back to the idea that, you know, policies are important, making sure you know what they are, making sure that you know what your disaster plan is can make a big difference. And then there's the issue around violence. And violence in the library can be pretty traumatic for everybody. Again, knowing your policies, if you have a panic button, knowing where it is, if you need to call police, who you need to talk to, handling overdoses. You know, there are a lot of times where things can really go to places I think we don't want them to go to. But at the same time, knowing policy, professional abilities, and, you know, being able to work together with the rest of your team at your library can really help you get through some of these really complicated situations. So there are a lot of different ways to find support. And finding support is incredibly important when you're starting a new job, especially because sometimes there are things that are just very challenging and you need to get through them because it's your job and you love being a librarian. I mean, being a librarian is awesome, right? But some parts of being a librarian can be really challenging. So, you know, you can find yourself a mentor, whether it's your friend who is a librarian 2 states away and you're chatting with her on Facebook about an issue that you had, or the new members roundtable with ALA has a mentor matchup. So if you're looking to be a mentor or to be a mentee, they're a great place to start. In the best of all possible worlds, we would be able to develop healthy working relationships with all of our coworkers, with all of our patrons, with all of our bosses. But sometimes, depending on, clash or generational clash, it's not necessarily always possible, so the best thing is to see who you can develop those relationships with, do your best, and, realize that building relationships does take time. There are tons also of online groups, websites, meetups. So here in Boston, there's Do We Drink and Boston Librarians. There's also the Boston Library Technology Meetup. In New York City, there's Query Librarians. There's also New York Librarians. And there's also places around the country that have pre-established library groups that are a good place to get support. Or if there's nothing in your area and you're really looking for a way to get to know other librarians, find support, make some friends, informal networking, what have you, you can start your own social group. So I actually ended up doing that with Phil Librarians in Philadelphia in 2011. I started up the group. I held monthly meetups, and it was a really great way to get to know people in my profession. And I'm really fortunate that somebody recently moved to Philadelphia and was able to restart the group, and it's still alive and kicking, which makes me super happy. It's a really good way to sort of take your professional life and build sort of those less formal connections that can really make a difference in your career. And also, I don't know about you, but I remember the heady days of my life before the library and hanging out with people and not talking about libraries. So I highly recommend looking up your friends who aren't librarians and occasionally spending time with them, because sometimes it's good to just take a break from library land and socialize with friends who, aren't going to ask you library questions. All right. So self-care is super important. Sometimes you're going to have a hard day. Sometimes patrons come in and they're just having a hard day, and it's not even necessarily about you. It's about them, but unfortunately you get caught in the crossfire. So some coping strategies to get you through your day, and these may not work for everybody. There's really good meditation apps. You can do a 3 or 5 minute meditation. You can grab a bite of chocolate, and a couple different things, but sometimes you just need to take 5 minutes, go cry in the back and take a deep breath and go back out there and get back in the ring. And in case anybody's feeling stressed out right now, we've been talking about some pretty heavy topics, I'd like to offer you a few moments of emergency cute animals. My favorite of these pictures is the baby pangolin. But whatever it is, sometimes it's good to just take time and just give yourself a minute or two, look at something silly, adorable, goofy, whatever, and just de-stress for a minute. So I want everybody to remember that coping strategies are really good for short-term fixes. Your first couple of months might be rough, your first couple of weeks might be rough. But if it's not letting up over time and things are getting really hard for you, you have a couple different options. A lot of places will have an EAP, which is an employee assistance program that can help you figure out resources for yourself to take care of yourself if you're struggling, reaching out to a therapist. And honestly, sometimes you've given it your best shot, and no matter what you're doing, it's just not the right fit for you. Whether it's a culture clash, whether it's just not the right position for you. Sometimes you need to say, hey, I did my best and it's not the right fit, and it's time for me to polish up my resume and do something for myself. I also want to just say that if things are really bad and you're considering suicide, please reach out to the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. Their number is 1-800-273-8255. A couple of things that make it worthwhile for me, and I think it's really good to have this list for anybody. Find the things that really make it worthwhile. You have a hard day, but you have a patron coming in and said they finally got that job because you helped them with the resume, and they're just so grateful. It's really wonderful to see somebody being able to take a really positive step in their life. I'm also really fond of artwork by children. As you can see, this is an artistic rendering of me. I believe this was a Christmas picture from one of my young patrons. And every time I look at it, I just sort of feel a little happier. And I think that can make a little bit of a difference when you know you have even your littlest patrons sometimes say, you know, hey, I think you're an awesome librarian. All right, so in conclusion, starting a new library job is full of many splendors and terrors, and remember that you are an amazing person. You got your education, you worked on your resume, you have fabulous professional skills, and here you are in your job. Some parts of it are going to be rocky, and I mentioned a lot of things, but I don't want you to feel like it's overwhelming to you, because I just want to give you an idea of some things that you might encounter, and maybe things that you're already dealing with. But I want you to know that there are tons of resources out there for you to find it. I'm always happy to be a resource as well. If you have any professional questions, you can send them to my work email. And if you just really need a friendly ear, you're having a hard time, you want some advice, feel free to email me at my personal email. So go forth, guys, do good things, be awesome, and remember that it takes a lot to survive in this library world, but I totally believe you can do it.
All right, thanks, Jazmin.
Thanks, guys.
I'll take this back. And if you want to see the next one, you can subscribe underneath. And I don't usually pop in and like make suggestions, but one of the things that has been really helpful for me over the last year is that I did the mental health first aid training, which is a little bit like CPR, but for people who are having like psychotic episodes or anxiety attacks or who are depressed and suicidal, and it was really helpful, and it's free. So if you can find one at the like health department in your area that's, you know, that's offering that, it's a really, really good idea for anybody who works with the public. But anyway, yep, thank you, and we'll see you in 2 weeks.
Bye-bye.